said that they had talks that moved things forward and that they did focus on specifics. But essentially, both sides also came out of this without a joint statement. And what you did see, and you talked about this, was a hardened stance, really, from China, saying that these agreements, this deal around agricultural and energy imports to China that it had signed up to on May the 19th, that this deal and agreement would be null and void if the threat of tariffs from Trump do not recede and aren't put on the back of the table. So there is now deep frustration here in China, I think it's fair to say, about the lack of decisiveness coming out of the Trump administration and the unpredictability. And Ross had come here for 2 days of talks, as you said, with Vice Premier Liu He, following that agreement between the two sides, where China had said that it would substantially increase its imports from the US. But then following that agreement, of course, you had the Trump comments that, in fact, this deal probably couldn't stand up, that it may not work. That was the president's line on that. And then, of course, you had the president coming out last week saying that the tariffs that he had threatened previously on $50 billion worth of imports from China were still something he was considering. So China then comes out with this new red line, as the state media have described it. And again, they're feeling a sense of whiplash here in China and frustration that they aren't getting more transparency from the Trump administrations on these trade talks.
Yeah, as you said, it comes down to that unpredictability in the Trump administration, using it as if it's almost like a trade weapon at this point with their relationships with many of their allies, even with China as well, Tom. So how likely or how else might China respond?
Well, we know that officials here have been working up a list, for example, of dozens, probably hundreds of products that they were going to cut tariffs on, ranging from healthcare products to food products. Those are not going to be announced, it seems, until they get more clarity from where the Trump administration is going to go from here. So I think the ball is very much in the Trump administration's court at this stage. There's also the question, of course, of ZTE, the telecom equipment maker that's been banned from buying tech from the US, and China's very concerned about that and obviously has been lobbying the Trump administration around easing the sanctions on that company. The flip side is, of course, that they can oversee this Qualcomm NXP deal, and we've been reporting that that will not be signed off until they get some more clarity on what happens with ZTE. We've also been reporting, of course, that Chinese officials have been in Europe during this period in the last few days when, of course, Washington has imposed these sanctions on their European allies, and Chinese officials have been there trying to conjure up support. Ironically, of course, many trade experts have said that if the US had teamed up with Europe on China, they may have made more progress. Now it seems the Trump administration is alienating its allies in Europe, and that is looking less possible. In fact, the Chinese officials are trying to build on their ties with their European allies around the multilateral trading system.